is a process of making ceramic pieces out of all coils. What's cool about it is it's easy to adjust the size and shape, and you can leave the outside textured, or you can smooth it out. It's up to you. So I'm leaving the outside of this little demo piece textured, meaning you can see all the coils. And the inside, I don't know if you can see that, but the inside is all smooth. So that is the first technique I'm going to teach you. We're going to do a practice pot starting today, and you'll work on it tomorrow and a little bit on Thursday. And then what you're going to do is you're going to design a final piece, a final functional piece, where you think about the coils and a design. So this is a bowl. You're going to think about the function of your final piece, if you want it to be a bowl, if so, what kind of bowl, how big you want it to be, and then you're going to start thinking about creating a design by using those coils and making them in a pattern, okay? So that's where it gets kind of fancy, but as you can see, the inside is nice and smooth, and so it's super fun. There's a lot you can do. So let's start with some basics. Yesterday we practiced very briefly how to make a slab. We practiced how to make the coils. The starting thing you need to do for this project is to roll a slab, because that's the base that you're going to build off of. You're going to add all your coils to that base. So you're going to roll a slab. I'm going to roll a slab, not using this whole thing because I'm going to make a small piece. Your practice pieces are going to be small. They're going to be about this size, okay? So I'm just going to roll a small piece of clay, and this is really fresh clay that you're going to get. It's extremely wet, and I don't need to do much because I want it to be the width of my finger. I'm going to use something as a tool to trace around, and I'm going to use a sharp tool to cut this out. This is called a needle tool. You can use a needle tool or you can use any kind of sharp tool. I'm going to trace around the bottom to make the base. And then I'm going to start rolling coils. You can see it kind of got stuck to the bottom. I'll just pry that little sucker off. And I'm not going to worry about that. See, that's good to go. I'm going to start rolling coils, and I'm going to prep, like maybe 2 or 3 coils. You don't want to prep too many because you have to use them the same day, and you need to attach them the same day. Okay, so remember I squish my clay into a sausage shape. I twist the ends a little bit, and then I stand and roll so that I can use the entirety of my hand on my clay board. And actually, this is going to give me a lot, so I'm going to break that in half because I can tell it's going to get really wide. If your coil starts getting flat and it makes a thwack sound on your board, what you need to do is just retwist. It's really important to correct that because you don't want your coils to be flat and smooshy. You want them to be nice and round. So if you've got to correct that, you just retwist, and then it'll roll. As you roll, it'll roll back into a tubular shape. Okay? All right, there's one. I'm going to just prep this one so I can show you. All right, so you can tell that like this coil right here is not usable, so I'm going to trim that off. It's too skinny. I might save that and use it for something else. So I'm going to start attaching these. Where I attach them or how I attach them is going to determine whether this thing gets wider or simply taller. So if I want this to get a little bit wider, I might attach it around the kind of the outside like that. And I'm lucky because this coil is kind of perfect in length. But let's say I didn't want it to be that much wider and I wanted it to be like really tall and skinny. If that were the case, I would take a needle tool or a knife and trim this off so that that extra is gone. And then this is really important. I've got to blend these pieces together completely. This first layer is going to support all the other layers. So I'm taking this wooden curved tool And inside where those two pieces of clay touch, I am blending those two pieces together so that they are permanently attached. Anything that you add has to be blended by the end of class, or it will not stay attached. It will pop off because it'll start to lose moisture and you'll have problems. It doesn't need to be pretty today. It doesn't need to be really smooth. It just has to be blended together on the outside, on the inside and on the outside. So I have this little seam here where these two meet. I have a couple of options. So I can marry these together so that it looks like it's all one piece. If I want to preserve this coil though, then what I'm going to do instead is take my tool and blend just a little bit where that seam is. So on the first and second days of your build, you're not worrying about making everything really, really smooth. You're not. You're thinking about construction. You're thinking about building the main form. So this is kind of rough. If I want to smooth now, I can take my finger and get in there and smooth a little bit more. And this is where if you've got really long fingernails, you might run into some problems. So you might want to consider keeping them short just for the next 4 weeks. I cut mine because they were way too long. So now I've got a good base. I'm going to keep adding coils. It's the same process, okay? I could even make this one a little bit thinner. I'm going to trim off this little end here. I'm just going to keep going, okay? But what I want to do is score and slip, because we're going to pretend that this clay is not really soft, and we want to get ourselves in the habit of doing that. So to score, I'm going to take my needle tool or any sharp tool, it doesn't matter, and I'm just going to cut into the clay a little bit, because again, I want to create a bond like this. I'm going to use a little bit of water. You'll have water containers at your table. I'm going to use a spray bottle because I didn't have that ready. And then I'm just going to set this on top. And same thing, okay? I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that and join those pieces together, because then my form is going to be a mess. It's going to be all uneven on the sides, and one side's going to start to get really tall and one's going to get all lopsided. So I want to trim that off. I always want my coils to be even because it just makes it easier for me to build. Same process, okay? I blend the seams together. I blend the inside. But once I start blending the inside, I don't have to blend the outside. I can keep that little donut shape if I like it. And maybe I will. Maybe I'll just keep this one a donut shape, kind of like this one. Okay? So I'm going to take a rounded tool, or I can use my finger, or I can use a spoon. In your toolbox, you've got all kinds of things. But this is a small enough piece that I can cradle it in my hand to get in there and blend. All right, so we're going to blend after each row. This clay is at a stage now called leather hard, and this is what you want to have happening with your clay before you start really getting obsessively into smoothing, okay? This clay has lost a nice amount of water, but I can carve into it and I can really get in there and smooth without worrying about squishing it. This clay is so wet that if I add too much water to it, it will smush on me. It's not a good idea for me to try to really work at smoothing, because it's too soft. Mud? And we don't want to make it into mud. So this really, I want it to be in that leather hard phase, because then I can really get in there and like really get it nice and smooth, if that makes sense, okay? Before the end of the class period, please carve your name in the bottom and your class period. And then we are gonna, because we're gonna work on these for a couple of days, we cover it with plastic, and there's a brown garbage can that says plastic bags only. We take our plastic bag like this, and we cover it from the top like this. On the top, You can kind of just gently tuck it in. Please do not put your clay piece inside like this, because then it's really hard to get out. We just want to cover it over the top. And then it goes on the black carts in the back of the room.